children that are deported to Russia, Ukrainian children.
Do you see India's role right now in the current peacemaking?
Maybe this year you can tell me what exactly is the agenda of foreign policy for India?
It's a bit of a problem when people throw at you what you said last year.
Thank you, Samir. My name is Marina Domushkina. Thank you for having me third year in a row. I've been alumna and I've been young fellow in 2023. Minister, last year you wrote a really important book, Why Bharat Matters. Also, thank you for signing. And there was a great clip about India being a peacemaker and not taking the sides. So the question is very relevant. Where do you see India's role right now in the current peacemaking? And what it would be? Would it be a peacekeeping forces maybe? Would it be a contribution to confidence building measures? And I will end here because I think that India should play a role because it's a global power in your side, in Indo-Pacific and in Asia in general. So please elaborate and thank you for having me again. And I hope this question will still bring me next year.
She's a alumni from Ukraine. She was there in 23 and she's very dear. So,
I think the word you used, peacemaker, is a very strong word. Let me put it, or let me describe what we have tried to do. We have always believed, that this conflict in Ukraine is tragic. It will not have a good ending. People are dying for reasons and purposes which when we look back, as we have looked back on many other conflicts where there have been high casualties, you actually ask yourself, why did we let that happen? So we've always felt it's important to find, a negotiated way. And a negotiated way obviously has to be a negotiation between the parties. So we have tried on one side to speak to the Russian leadership, on the other hand to engage the Ukrainian leadership, to tell one that it cannot be resolved by war, and to tell the other that look, you have to talk, you have to engage the other party. By lining up everybody else in the world, other than the other party, you're not going to get a solution. So we have been in favor of not just negotiations, but actually, direct negotiations, you can say, in a way. We think that's the way. But if I put that aside, at the, in a sort of larger sense, we have tried to take a common sense position. A common sense position that this war must end. It is disastrous, obviously, for the two parties concerned, but it is hugely damaging for the rest of the world. And we see today that positions we took in 22, 23, which quite honestly were not exactly applauded in every part of the world, there's much greater acceptance today. And in that sense, there are episodes where we've tried to help on the Black Sea grain corridor. I think last year I spoke about it.
I was one of negotiators, so I know exactly. Thank you so much for that.
Negotiators.
Yeah. So look, I'm not going into that. I think at the end of the day, there has to be a global common sense approach to this conflict. And the global common sense approach has to be that there has to be a negotiation. And ultimately, other than the parties, it's for the parties and, anybody else who has the ability to influence that negotiation, to take a position. But eventually people feel, okay, India contributed by awakening common sense about a conflict, about a very tragic and a very bloody conflict. I think we would have done some good.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Samir, for the invitation, and thank you, sir, for having us here. Another question from Ukraine. My name is Irina Krasnoshtan, and this will continue this conversation. You have highlighted the special role that India has, speaking both to Ukraine and Russia, and you have also spoken about, tragic consequences of the war. One of them is that there are thousands of children that are deported to Russia, Ukrainian children. Do you think that India, in this very unique role, can play a role in getting these kids back to Ukraine?
A conflict like this has many dimensions, many aspects of it. I don't know if I really can comment on a particular aspect of it. Obviously, If children have got separated, that itself is a cause for enormous distress. But I would say right now there's a kind of a big issue which needs to be resolved. If that big issue is resolved, when there is a conflict of this magnitude, you're not going to fix it by fixing parts of the problem. You're going to fix it by fixing the main problem, and then the parts will, different aspects of it will happen. But I understand the concern that you have expressed.
Hello, Senator. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Last year, I asked you about the agenda of foreign policy after the election, and you make laugh about me last year.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Okay.
So maybe this year you can tell me what exactly is the agenda of foreign policy for India. And as a researcher on India and Israel, I'm interested in studying new trends in India's foreign policy. In your point of view, what areas India global engagement will be important to deeper research?
It's a bit of a problem when people throw at you what you said last year, especially if you don't remember what you said last year. It's even more awkward if people quote you and you're not exactly sure what you wrote or said. But having said that, look, what is our agenda?
So you're left between twice.
Yeah. No, but what is our agenda? At the end of the day, we are a large country. We are a country which has had its problems, I would say, difficult periods in our history. And today, we see the prospect for great growth. We see decades ahead of sustained growth in this country. We look at the world as an opportunity. We look at the world very optimistically. We think there are partners and possibilities in this world, and that more we engage the world, the greater will be the growth at home. So in many ways, almost everything we do in foreign policy, to me, has to have some impact or some relevance at what is happening in terms of national development at home. Now, it doesn't mean that we are not interested in shaping the world, because considering how interconnected the world is, what happens at home and what happens abroad, the line is a very thin line. So most of all, like any country, we focus on the neighborhood. The neighborhood, as is often the case, can have its challenges. It also has its relationships and its strengths. I think overall today we have a much more integrated, much more connected, much more, in a way, a stronger sense of solidarity and commonness in our immediate neighborhood. Then we have extended neighborhoods in all four directions: in the Gulf, in Southeast Asia, in ASEAN, in Central Asia, and in the South, in the Indian Ocean territories. And we want to bring the extended neighborhoods much closer to us, which it's not a rhetoric. I mean, you've got to do things to make that happen. When you look beyond, it's a world of big powers. It's very important to have good relations with all of them, to get an optimal positioning. Sometimes it's easy. The faraway ones are often less of a problem. That's a simple correlation between geography and politics. Sometimes the ones more proximate are the ones with whom there's more competition. But how do you manage the equation among big powers and between big powers and ourselves? That's the next level. And today, I mean, if I were to think of a 2030, because we sort of have a vision of 2047. 2047 is now 22 years away from us. So how do I, plan for, where will I be? I have to imagine it and prepare for it. And I do think that we will have a much bigger, much broader global footprint. So I am preparing today for a Latin America and a Caribbean and a Pacific Island and a West Africa and a Mongolia, which may not be proximate, which may not be that big on my immediate priorities, but as a medium, long term, it's a relationship that I need to have. So you've got to do the short, medium, long, all at the same time. And I think what happens, when you are a government, last year we had an election since all of us met last. You know, to be a third-term government, you have the experience, I would say, the learnings of 2 terms. You know much more sure-footedly where you're going, the pace at which you're going, how you want to go. So I think we have that advantage today of people, who